In this lecture, the last of the course, I want to talk about the war's legacies. What were the main legacies of this war? The longest colonial war in British history and one of the longest declared wars in Americas. The most important legacy, obviously, was the transformation of 13 British colonies into a union of independent states. In so doing, the war confirmed the success of the project announced in the Declaration of Independence, that a new government based on the consent of the people and their right to self-government had a right to join the powers of the earth. That was a truly revolutionary message, and it would inspire revolutionaries elsewhere, starting with France during the late 1780s, but eventually including the French colony of Saint-Domingue, which declared independence as the Black Republic of Haiti in 1804, Portuguese Brazil, and Spain's dominions in Central and South America. By themselves, those were hugely important legacies, and they are with us to this day. But they were by no means the war's only consequences. The war also changed the British Empire, putting a stop to attempts to draw Britain's colonies more closely into the national system of taxation and representation as it existed in England, Scotland, and Wales. Britain's early attempts at colonial taxation, the Sugar and Stamp Acts of 1764 and 1765, had been based on the misguided notion that Parliament enjoyed the same supremacy in Ireland and the colonies that it enjoyed in Britain proper. The peace proposal that Lord Carlisle offered Congress in 1778 effectively killed that vision, opening the way for the resumption of a quasi-federal system of colonial administration where Britain's overseas enjoyed the same limited rights of home rule that Anglo-Americans in the 13 colonies had enjoyed before the Revolution. With the exception of Ireland, which accepted an incorporating union in 1801, Britain would formalize that quasi-federal relationship by granting white-controlled colonies of settlement in South Africa, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand progressively more responsibility for their own government. Crowned by the creation of the British Commonwealth in the 20th century, that transformation had its roots in the British response to the American Revolution. Crucially, for the United States, this version of the British Empire continued to be a major power in the new republic's neighborhood. During the final years of the war, Britain just showed how militarily formidable it still was, destroying a combined Franco-Spanish invasion fleet in April 1782 at the Battle of the Saints near Jamaica, and in an engagement with implications for the balance of power in both Europe and America, lifting the Spanish siege of Gibraltar in the Mediterranean. Britain was also in the early stages of the industrial transformation that would turn cities like Britain and Glasgow into workshops of the world. Although the loss of the 13 North American colonies was a major blow, Britain was still a great power as well as a neighbor with whom the United States shared a continental border. Americans had no choice but to find a way to get along with their former colonial masters. Partly because of this dangerous neighborhood, the Revolutionary War also highlighted for Americans the inadequacies of the Articles of Confederation and the need for a stronger union. In 1783, one of the demands of the Newburgh conspirators in the Continental Army had been for the states to give Congress independent powers to tax. Although Americans rejected the plotters' method, that demand for greater fiscal powers resonated after the war was over and played a key role in the growing demand for a convention that would either strengthen the Articles of Confederation or start over and write a new constitution. When the delegates to the Constitutional Convention gathered in Philadelphia in the spring of 1787, they chose the second option, creating a much stronger federal government than the one that had existed under the Articles. During the debates over whether to ratify the document that resulted, it was no accident that some of the Constitution's strongest supporters were veterans who had served in the Continental Army. The Revolutionary War's final legacy, one that was very much on the minds of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, involved the Civil War with which the Revolutionary War began. When Americans began to celebrate and commemorate the war, they tended to discount the contributions of the regular soldiers in the Continental Army and to focus instead on the Massachusetts Minutemen and other soldiers in the Patriot militias. But the militia they remembered was the well-regulated militia of the Second Amendment to the Constitution, not the mob violence of Patriot committees of public safety and the Loyalist committees that responded to them. Americans who lived through the Revolutionary War knew that the struggle with Britain had been a violent struggle, one where men and women had often had to take the laws into their own hands, and they had suffered when others had done the same to them. The United States, at the war's end, was in some ways a more violent place than the British colonies had been when the war began. Finding a way to keep that violence in check, to prevent the urge to settle differences at the point of the sword and the barrel of a gun, and instead to resolve them through the ballot box, was one of the framers of the Constitution's central goals. That commitment to civil society and democratic governance remains the Revolution's most important legacy today. It is only by heeding that legacy that government by the people, of the people, and for the people has endured for the last 250 years, and it is only by keeping that lesson in mind that it will endure in the years to come.